Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm here with Stuffy for another set of picoCTF challenges today, where we're going to be doing more web exploitation. But before we start, please have a look at these guidelines. Every challenge in the picoCTF, try it yourself, struggle a little bit, see how far you can get, and then you can check out the walkthroughs. Even if you do solve it, odds are one of us is going to have a different take. So yeah, by all means, start with your own attempt and then go from there. In terms of being stuck, don't be afraid to be stuck. I mean, half an hour is a good amount of time to be groping in the dark and like prime your brain for learning. And finally, like I already said, if you solve it or if you don't, check out walkthroughs, check out other people's walkthroughs, not just ours. Because it gives you multiple perspective on each of the challenges. All right, let's get into it. All right, Stuffy, here we go. First challenge we got today is called login. That is the link. And I honestly don't completely remember what this was about. So like for the audience out there, we meet on a Wednesday. And I do most of my solutions on a Saturday. So every time we do this meeting, there's always one or two that are like feeling a little bit new. So what we got is an HTML file that references this index.js and styles.css. So I'm just going to go back and inspect. And I've been finding that basically the first place to look is the sources. And we can just go through these. There's a beautifier little thing right here for the index and the styles of CSS. And there is an interesting, I don't know what you would call this. I mean, it looks like a hash or cookie that happens when there's a, go ahead.
So one thing I noticed on your notes was that you asked, so that's, to me, like I look at that and I instantly can tell it's base 64 encoded.
Right.
So like number one, there's a couple ways to do this. So number one, obviously, if you just see it enough, you're going to kind of like, even if it's like, there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, that's base 64 encoded and it's not. And that's just because I know what it looks like. But yeah, so the way base 64 encoded works, like number one, you're only going to have characters A to Z, 0 to 9. And then plus and a /. Those are the only characters that base 64 can have. So if you start seeing like underscores and stuff, I know like, okay, that's not base 64. So there's certain characters. The other big one here, this one doesn't have it, but a lot of times on base 64 encoded, you'll see the equal sign a few times and it'll be at the end. That usually is a padding to finish the packet or the byte. So if you see that, usually like, because you'll see that a lot where there'll be an equal sign at the end or two. And like instantly in my head, I'm like, oh, base 64. So those are a couple of the things that you're going to look at when you're looking, if you're just kind of going for it. But a lot of times it's kind of just I see it and I'm like, oh, there's nothing crazy about that. So there's no odd characters or anything. So it's probably base 64. And then funny enough, this one is base 64. So if you just decode that.
One second, because the way I found out it was base 64, right, is I looked at ATOP JavaScript, because like the program is .js, and then I look at that, and there you go. That's kind of, so like you've looked at so much base 64 encoded data you knew, and I got it out of this ATOP function. Correct password, your flag is. So like it's clearly ATOP of t.p. So I don't even know if we had t.p somewhere assigned.
Looks like there's a T.
Oh, there it is.
P's up there. Yep.
It says not equal to though, TP. Oh, and incorrect username. So alert, I'm just trying to see alert incorrect password. Like this code is kind of hard to read, but I guess I would just take this.
So the way I did it is similar to what you're talking about. I just happen to know. But if you, so firstly, when I see that, I think, okay, this is probably the flag just based on the length. But if you see at the beginning of the code there, where right under, or sorry, the beginning of that line where we're at, where it says return, I actually decoded that as well.
Right.
First, that's the username. So I knew, okay, I need to use this username. And then that's probably the base 64 encoded password. So I actually didn't know that that was the flag. I thought that was the username and password. And then I believe it's the actual flag as well.
It's
so yeah, you can actually use this flag to log in too.
Yeah, like if you read it, it basically says here, if it isn't, basically this is like, if this is not equal to the t.u, I think somewhere in the database is the, like, this is where the username is. If it isn't, alert incorrect username. And if this isn't the password, t.p is the password. It's not stored here, it's stored somewhere else. But basically, yeah, if this isn't the password. But it's interesting that I don't see the, oh, does it say BTOA ATOB t.p? So your flag is the password. Yeah. Okay, so like if we go to CyberChef, and let's see if the magic does it, because it's base 64.
Yeah, this one, the flag was the password, but I actually thought they would have you log in and then you'd get the password, or the flag, excuse me.
And if I paste that, yeah, I mean, sometimes I would even type in pico here and then click bake, but
to try and, yeah,
it's already there. Server. All right. That was, as you can see, guys, like the thing about CTF is that not every challenge requires comprehensive understanding. There are clues you can follow.
And you can actually log in with that password too. So that tells us that that was the actual password.
And let's see if we can decode the username then. So we can try to, there's definitely no pico in there.
Try the intensive mode on the magic. So I believe that.
Aha. XORed to that. Ooh, there's a lot of 252s. I mean, why don't we get rid of this and just go from base 64? The thing is,
I have to get rid of it. Yep.
I still don't know how to.
There it is. Yep.
Admin. Right. So let's go to this website. Let's close that. Admin. Oh, Control Z. It's admin. And the flag was, no.
We forgot it. We'll have to decode it again.
Okay. So inspect sources. It was in the JS file, wasn't it? Beautify it. And you get that. And I'm curious, like, yeah, I didn't actually check that. I think we can just stick to from base 64. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Ta-da!
There you go.
It's a little alert. All right, good. We're underway. So the next 4 are going to be easy. They just literally turned up this morning. So normally, like, I leave Stuffy with some notes and questions, but these I pretty much sent one line, like, easy. So yeah, there's going to be 4 of them in a row, and they're all some variation of inspection. And let's, while we solve them, I'd like to discuss sort of, in a way, a bit of a methodology for these inspect questions. So first of all, I mean, there is our website on hiatus. We're going to inspect it in a minute, but just have a look at the hint as well. What is the web inspector in web browsers? Okay, so they basically tell you to inspect it. Great. So inspect. Now, if you want to actually see this unpacked HTML file, you go into sources And there it is. Oh, and that was about as easy as a flag goes.
Yeah.
So I think the next challenge is going to be a bit of an opportunity to discuss strategy, but this is just too easy.
Yeah. So one thing I see a lot with, especially people learning hacking, just starting out. So like a hacker's main tool for scanning and stuff like that is Nmap, right? So that's going to give you a ton of information on machines. One thing I see a lot of people do is they underestimate the easy ones like that, or overestimate, excuse me. So they will like they'll be like, okay, we've got a web server because this tells you to go to this website. And they'll be like, okay, take that web server. Let's start in mapping. Let's start. And it's like, before I do any of that, like what I always do, and this isn't necessarily everybody, I always just go to the site, because you never know. Sometimes the sites will have like the version number of what Apache it's running or something like that right at the bottom. And it's like, okay, well, I don't even have to scan it or anything. It just gave me the information I need. So like this one, you could have probably spent hours scanning it and everything else, and it's sitting in the code, So sometimes the easiest solution is just looking at it.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine, at least out in the real world, like when you're typing in code, particularly in a collaborative environment, you're constantly leaving comments for colleagues.
Correct.
And so you could leave a login in there. I mean, that's like that's why some of these flags are there. Like, I really don't think that the guys organizing picoCTF, who are, I mean, first of all, it's a university and then a team of hackers that won at DEF CON more times than anybody else. Yeah, I don't think they would do challenges that are super easy at this stage unless they had some sort of real world connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, it happens more often than you think, actually.
Okay, includes. That's the next one. What does that one say? Go to this website and see what you can discover. Okay, we'll open that and see the hint. Is there more code than what the inspector initially shows? Okay. Say hello. Code in a separate file. All right, they really are insisting on it. So let's go into sources. And I mean, it's the usual HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and look at that. So one thing that I do in case there is a flag literally lying around in the open, in here I control and I just search for either pico or CTF, right? And there it is, like it'll highlight it. But if this file was huge, that would like immediately tell me, because there's a match. Like I don't even have to do anything. It'll tell me when there's a match. I'll go from index, 0, script. If I'm not sure, I'll just hit enter, but there's nothing there. Immediately says one match. So you can actually just search for the flag. It doesn't hurt. I mean, if you were in the real world, you might be searching for username, the word username, or the word password, or the word admin, perhaps, right? Those are some keywords that might give away some site weaknesses. So let's put this together. picoCTF. And I think, oh, that was part 2. Sometimes like they read something interesting. Inclusivity of F7. I don't know. All right. 2 down.
3 down. That was includes.
That was includes. Yeah. Oh yeah. We did login, inspect HTML, includes. Yeah. Search source. All right, let's see what this one says. The developer of the website mistakenly left important artifact in the website source. Can you find it? Well, I don't know what they say. Website on your local machine, so you could use more powerful tools for searching. That's a smart idea, but let's just see if we can use the basic tools I just showed you. Okay, this is a big website. There's not
Yeah,
not all these pages. Not all these pages really exist. I think these are just sort of tags that take you to a different part of the website.
and it's not uncommon to download websites to inspect for vulnerabilities. It's actually fairly common because then you're not interacting directly with the site. So if you do find something, you can test it before trying it on a live target.
Wow. Okay. So I'll tell you what, we're totally going to do that. I don't know how to download the whole website. I can show you how I did it. I reckon it was following those 3 steps. This is fresh in my mind. So I'm like, great. We're going to go into the sources. And this was a bit tougher, right? Because there's 4 CSS files and that many JavaScript files. But remember, Control F, Pico, enter nothing. And just you go boom, nothing, nothing. 1 match. There's a match. We keep scrolling. picoCTF. Where is the match? Oh, there it is. All right. Now, we can maybe use grep or something. Like, how do we download a website? I did it. This is my rookie way that's very effective. But if this website was 10 times more complicated, and maybe there were files that are being pointed at that are not that easy to just go through one by one. If there was 100 files, for example, then maybe I couldn't find it. So how would we do it?
So the easiest way would just be go over to the website itself. Now I'll tell you, you can't download server-side files, right? So a file that it's calling on or like a database, things like that. You can't, you just can't download them. You can't access them. But so you can go back to the site and right click it. And usually you can save as, and then it should ask you.
Okay, let me just, okay, I can save it in my downloads. But of course, this machine that I'm on is this like I'm on a Linux machine via picoCTF. That's different. So that's a little bit of an issue. I'm kind of like reticent to stick all my stuff in front of people. Yeah. But okay, there it is. That's the website's downloaded. And
so this will open the basically however you want to open it. It doesn't matter because now it's hosted on your machine. Or it's not hosted, I'm sorry. It's just going to open on your machine.
If I open with, I've downloaded Sublime Text. I've never really used Sublime Text in my life, but I did download it at some point.
And you can see here's the basically the source code that we were looking at before.
But this is just the HTML file. Oh my God. I did not know. We definitely didn't see that in the
This is the raw code. Yeah. So it will, when you're looking in Inspector, it changes it for you. It separates this. But there's tools out there that will download an entire website for you, but this is how to download the pages of it. But you can get tools out there that'll download, just crawl the website and download all the files for you. Now it would take a little while on video because the website's probably got 50, 60 files to it or pages to it.
Fair enough. Is there a way that from like to do the equivalent of a wget, a folder that
there's tools out there that will do it? But the realistically the easiest way that someone's going to do this is first thing, you don't know all the directories that exist there. So there are actual tools out there that will crawl and then scan the websites for vulnerabilities and things like that. those are going to be a little louder, meaning that they're probably going to detect you doing it because it's trying things.
Yeah.
The other big thing is there's tools out there like Dirbuster, GoBuster and stuff that are just going to crawl the site and tell you all the directories. And then you can use another tool to download all those files and things like that. Because that's the biggest thing that's hard with just saying, hey, here's a website, download it, is you don't know there's probably directories that you can't see, right? That you'll have to actually manually find. So that's why there's no real easy way to do it, because you have to find the website, all the files that are associated with it as well. So you need almost a crawler is what it's called, but you'll use a tool like Dirbuster, GoBuster, stuff like that to actually do the crawling for you. The other way that you can get specific information you need from websites is Google dorking, that type of stuff, where you can
Google dorking.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I don't know. Sounds funny. What is it?
Yeah, it is searching large websites, not just like this website's not that big, obviously, but like a really large website for a company. It's saying like, okay, let's say I'm looking for specific information from a company. I would Google that company, but I'd put in certain syntaxes in Google, and it would only show me like PDFs that have the key text like usernames. And then it would search and it would find any PDF they've ever published that has the term usernames in it. Right.
Wow.
And it would show me just that. So it's a way of using Google as an entire web crawler for you, basically.
That's I mean, there's a whole lot to be said for learning all the different search parameters that can be used with Google.
Yeah, Google is extremely powerful if you know how to use it.
All right, so I think we are done with that one too.
That was
local authority.
Yep. So this one I saw your notes too. You did this one just slightly different than me, if I remember correctly.
I'll show you how I did it. I did it. So, I mean, I really just used my own sort of method, just search for picoCTF, really. So like, I'm going to inspect that. And when I do that, I'll go into the sources. And it doesn't seem like the index is really simple. And there's just the light blue color there. So there's nothing really there at all. So I did go into, I did open up Burp Suite. That was the next thing I did, because that's every time I see a login terminal, I always open up Burp Suite now. And I entered some stuff and put it in the repeater. So give me 1 second. So Burp Suite's coming into the action. So yeah, I open the browser, turn on the intercept. Where's the Burp browser? There you are. And gotta forward that one. And there was something interesting that I found after I tried to log in. All right, so we send that in, and that response just took us to a whole new page. And there was something interesting here. There's clearly input validation, and I was thinking, function filter string. But then I realized that filters it, like it checks what's a valid username and password, but that filtering is not verification. It does actually call a function that checks the password. So I'm like, but yeah, so the logic of the login is all in that response. So I was like, well, I need to see this response. I need to log in or fail to log in and actually inspect that. So I click login, and there it is. That's that PHP file. And like, it's like right in your face. Like that's the first thing you see and I think that could be added to the method, right? Like inspect the screen you get when you fail to log in. Because
So yeah, there's two ways I did this, and both are similar. So number one, I saw that you opened Burp Suite, which I like where your head was. But this is another example of where, like I said, sometimes it's right in your face, like you said. So like all I did
Hmm.
is I did the same thing you did. If you go back to the main page, is I just opened the inspector like you
Mhm.
did. And so this is something I always do. If there's a login page like this, I always just put in random stuff and log in to see what
Right.
pops up, because it will now give you the files that it reached out to. Another way I did this is if you go back to the main source code there and look at the not the style CSS, the body of the so
One
not
second.
sources, just go to elements
Yeah.
and you open the body. So this is another thing I did. If you look here in the body,
Mhm.
you'll see that it references a login.php. So I instantly knew that that's there. So then I went up top to the URL bar and I put login.php at the end of it, the / login.php. And then when I went here, you notice it now references a
secure.js.
secure.js. So now I just went over to login.php. I changed it to secure.js and boom, there's your password.
Yep. Yep. So, I mean, I think there is almost a method to it that you should always inspect the page after you go in. It just, like I said, I stumbled across it when I saw that the response contained a whole bunch of code. So that was the password. I don't remember. The username was maybe just username. I don't remember anymore.
I think it was admin.
Admin.
The only reason I say that is because it's admin.php.
Hey, there it is. So interesting. Like we saw way harder stuff that's worth 100 points. Our ongoing criticism of Pico is the points distribution. Like, I mean, I think most of the challenges are really good, but most of the points distribution is bad. So
agreed.
We've got some assembly required too. And I'll say something for the audience. We are not going to do 3 or 4. The way that I did this is the absolute most hacky way. Like if I remind you of some assembly required 1, like I'll open this. I think in the inspect, somewhere in the sources, if you beautify this, there was a WebAssembly file, and literally in there was the picoCTF flag, right? And so WebAssembly 2 has got some assembly required 2 had, I don't think, no hints. And it looked exactly the same. I mean, so much so I better close everything else. Sorry, I meant to inspect, not view page source. And then when you go to sources, there is a WebAssembly file. I mean, if you look at this one, it looks very much similar. There's a whole lot of, like encoded characters, and this is the WebAssembly file. And I mean, when I saw that, I knew that that was probably a flag, although that was encoded massively. And somehow, some way, I magicked it in the CyberChef. I don't know. I'm wondering, like, is there a way for someone who's not that familiar with WebAssembly, from what you've seen, to get anything out of this?
I mean, you're not going to get much out of it as far as, because what they're doing with the WebAssembly, all of these are the exact same thing. They just get more complex. So the problem is they're just having you look at WebAssembly and break that code down and follow the steps. So that code is written to take the letter, like that first X in that code, right? And it's going to say, okay, it does this, now reference this part of the code, and then go there, and then reference this part of the code, then go there, reference this. And it just gets more complex as we go further on. So unless you know WebAssembly, you're not going to like just pick this up, right? You have to look at it. And
this whole thing is just a collection of basically encoding rules.
Encoding, it's instructions for a way to basically figure out what they want to do with that letter. So it's its own encoding procedure basically. And you just have to follow the instructions. So you have to basically reverse engineer the code is what you need to do. So you have to have an understanding of the WebAssembly or else you're not going to be able to reverse engineer it. I mean,
how, like someone who can code, how much time would I need to, I mean, just give me a ballpark figure, need to spend studying WebAssembly documentation so I could tackle it the way that, you know, it should be tackled?
you probably wouldn't need to really spend that much, maybe a couple hours, because you probably wouldn't even have to really fully understand WebAssembly. You would have to understand certain functions in it, right? So you'd have to go to the first function and say, okay, this is what it's trying to do with the first number. And then you'd have to go to the next one. And when you go to the next one, it'll say, do this, right? So then you could research that function and then you could do it to it. And eventually what you'll be doing is creating your own decoding algorithm, if you will. And then you could write a script to then after that, go through each letter and do it for you. It's just, it's more,
it's a
than
test
we
of,
have time.
yeah, it's a test of being having the ability to read this code. So look, for the audience, let's just go to CyberChef, and I copied that whole thing, right? I mean, I went magic. I copied that whole thing. Oops, that's not the right one. That's the previous one. So if it's at the bottom of this, look, this strikes me like I did it in pieces, and the back of it struck me as like maybe not the flag. So I went there, and I mean, because I know it has to have pico in it, I did go intensive mode, and look, the T8888. So then I was like, all right, why don't we just remove some things? Maybe if I bake that, lost the bracket, Control Z, bake. I'm just curious, like, how is equals and a bracket?
I'm actually not sure what, so it's XORing, but then is that all it's doing? Yeah. See, I did this a little bit different than you. So I did the same thing you're doing,
All right.
except for I just took out the equals K.
Yeah. And well, when I pasted that, I just went picoCTF and pray to God it works. Like, so I'd apologize to the audience. Like, this is a hack. I'll give you one nice, interesting piece of information. Apparently, it was GCHQ that released CyberChef to the world for free, which is an interesting choice for, like, you know, the British equivalent of the NSA, or they're more like the CIA plus NSA in the UK. That they do spying and intelligence. So yeah, it's a very powerful tool. I could totally see, like, in the initial, when we first did our first walkthrough, and I was like showing you individual ones that were easier to use than CyberChef, but CyberChef, it's all in one place. So I'm becoming more a fan now.
Yeah, it all just depends. Sometimes it's nice to have 2 or 3 in your back pocket that you can always go to, because some of them don't find things that others will at times, especially those hashing databases that are online where you can check if a hash exists. Some databases have them and some won't.
All right, here we go. Most cookies. So this one is a little bit on the trickier side. Essentially, you're given a page we've used before, where you enter cookie names. So like sugar, and the website basically tells you, hey, is this the cookie or is it not the cookie? The tricky thing is, if you were to copy server.py, I'll just you get it. In fact, this is my second attempt in this folder. There might be 2 server.pys. If we go into it and there's a reason why this is pretty wide. Server.py. You're going to notice a couple of things. There's a bunch of valid cookie names, and this list goes on and on and on. In order to copy it, I've had to basically shrink the width of the screen a lot. So one thing that heads up, we're going to copy and paste that, but I'm not going to do it on this tutorial because in our previous attempt, that copying and pasting took about 5 minutes. So a random cookie is picked, and that cookie becomes the secret key. Inside this flag function, what happens is that the actual cookie from the session is checked if it has a parameter called very_auth. And if the value of that parameter is admin, then it renders the flag. Otherwise, it says that's a cookie, not very special though, success. So that session cookie is generated whether or not you enter a valid cookie or not. So let's just go to the website for a minute and you can witness that session cookie. So right here, if I was to, inspect the page, go into application, there's our session cookie. So we can use this guy. And if you enter a correct name or any valid name for a session cookie, anything from the list, that'll generate that. And if you, I don't know if I should show it, but if we inspect like a burp suite request of the page, so let's just drop what we were doing, open browser. Where's my, was this the auth one? All right, sorry. Close that. I drop that into the browser, request it, go to burp suite. If I forward that, we get a session cookie right here. And we get a session cookie at every stage. And if I was to enter some invalid thing, we get a new session cookie and we forward that and we get another session cookie that's much larger and that doesn't appear to be a valid cookie. So the valid cookies basically are given, you get these valid session cookies if you actually enter a cookie name. So like if we call this sugar cookie and we pressed search, we forwarded it. And that's where that session comes from. So the cookie is not very special. And my original approach here was, well, why don't I figure out how these cookies are generated? And then I generate a cookie with 20 different passwords, with 20 different keywords, which are going to be the 20 different cookie names. However, that just wouldn't work through the intruder. And I don't know that we have enough time to go through that, but that took forever. And I was really, really frustrated because as soon as I learned how to basically create a session cookie in Flask, I figured it's got 20 possible passwords. It's got that very_auth admin, but it didn't work that way. So you and I actually solved it in very, very similar ways. I have to say, I have looked up some walkthroughs. Let me just get to my web shell. I used a tool called Flask and Sign. I'll control exit out of this. And before I use that, I just want to show you cat secrets.txt. The only thing I did was, and I didn't even need to format them, I just created a text file with all of the valid cookie names. So starting from there, I use this Flask unsigned tool to decode the cookie that we got on this page. So let me get this cookie. Application. And the command for that was Flask unsigned decode. Now, if you want to install Flask unsigned, the command is pip3 install Flask unsigned. And that should do it.
And one thing to note on this, so a lot of people are probably looking at this and thinking it's really difficult, but if you actually do any research, because they give you a hint, and the hint is how secure is a Flask cookie. If you just Googled Flask cookies at all, you would get, if you go to the actual Flask site, which is a Python module. So the Flask unsigned on Python's website itself actually has these instructions almost word for word. So you're on pythonbasics.org. I'm on pypy.org, which is pi.org. Yep. This literally has word for word almost exactly what he's doing. So it tells you how to use the tool, how to decode, how to code, all that stuff. So if you just do some research, you would have figured this one out even with no knowledge beforehand.
I dare say I did figure out a way that should have worked. Because I figured out how to generate 20 cookies using 20 different keywords. And I did actually get there like manually, but it wouldn't work through the intruder. So thanks, Stuffy, for basically putting us on track here, because this is the command we're doing, right?
One thing I'm thinking of, not to cut you off, but we were talking about that earlier. And one thing I'm thinking of why intruder might not have worked also is because every time you're submitting that request, it's a new request, and it chooses random every time. So you would have to still have a 1 in 20 chance to hit that. So that would be my best guess why intruder wasn't working.
Wow. That makes sense, because you've seen like when I used Burp Suite there for a minute, I kept on getting a new session cookie with every single request. Yeah. So you've almost got to like just go to a page like this page and then paste in a brand new correct session cookie. And I think that there's no way around it. So this is what we got when we decoded. This very auth thing is basically saying sugar. Now, if you remember from that script, nano server.py, that very auth needs to be admin. And I think in that current example, it's sugar cookie. If we can actually bake a cookie where very auth value is admin, then it'll give us the flag. So what we need to bake that cookie is Control X. We need that secret. And I'm not sure, to be honest, like if the very auth is sugar in this case, that's because I entered sugar. So that doesn't mean that sugar is the secret. In order to figure out what the current valid secret is, we basically got to try out a decode, like unsigned function, the decoding function, with all possible secrets. And this is where, if you remember, we just copied them, cat secrets. Oops, cat.
Might be secrets.txt.
Yeah, it is secrets.txt. Like, why is it not auto-completing? I've had like issues with auto-completing. So there they are. So we are going to basically do a brute force decode with all those secrets, and hopefully, so unsigned, we need to specify the function. I'm not sure if the code would work, but it's unsigned. You need to specify the cookie, and the cookie is this one. And we need to specify a word list. And I think it might actually be double tag word list. And that was secrets.txt. And there it is, butter. So the butter is the secret. I think you solved it slightly differently.
Yeah, I did the same thing, except for I didn't insert the cookie like you did. I just did directly to the server, which just grabs the cookie from the server.
Right.
So it's pretty much the exact same thing. It's just instead of cookie, I put the server there and it grabs the cookie for you. So it's the same thing. So you just do the tac server
and
then in quotes, you'd put the.
Would we?
Yeah.
If
you
it
would
says
take
if we
the
use
display out.
Okay.
Yep.
And
you may have to put that dash back, but either way, nope. There you go.
There you go. So it's butter. So now we got to basically sign a cookie with a secret that's butter. And we then, and this is interesting. Like I've got a couple of questions to ask you about that. Because yeah, even after I figured out exactly how to do it, it took me probably another 45 minutes to actually see the flag. Because like I was going to paste it here, refresh. I was pasting it into the cookie manager. So generally, if you paste the value, if I change that there, I don't want to refresh it because I have a feeling that when I refresh it, that session cookie is going to be different. And then we won't.
It won't be different as long as you don't go back to the login screen or reset the page.
Okay.
So there's a difference. See the reset button up there. That will actually reset the randomization.
Right. So we are going to sign a cookie. And for the cookie, we can actually write whatever parameters we want. It's kind of like an attached dictionary or JSON file for you guys familiar with, I guess, JavaScript people will know JSON file, Python people will know dictionaries. And the parameter was very auth. Have you ever heard very auth before? Like,
no, I mean, it just depends. So this is a weird way. I've never messed with Flask cookies much, but this is just showing you an insecure cookie. But this is a sample, if you will, of serializing your cookies and things. There's actually another box we're going to do later that shows a little bit more serialization. And this is the same concept, except for this Flask itself is designed for cookies, from my understanding. And so it's a very specific tool. It's clearly insecure, so I don't really run into this very often. But there might be people out there that have seen it in the real world. I've never ran into this in the real world, the Flask unsigned.
But there it is. That should run it. Unrecognized arguments admin.
Let's see.
I
think admin's not in quotes. Or no, that's where you put the secret key. That's why.
I have a feeling that
you put butter there is what you're supposed to put there. You don't put I think.
No. There was.
I think admin's not in quotes is what I think is what we're missing.
All right. Give me. Oh.
There we go. I think it's supposed to not be in quotes.
I have a feeling. No, but admin, it's a string though. Like if it's being processed by a Python program.
Let's see, sign cookie.
Same error. Okay.
That one's a little different.
Sign. Oh no,
no, it's not. It's the same. No, it's the same error. It's the same error. I didn't see the full error last time.
Oh, maybe I don't have a space after the cookie. 1 second. I don't. Probably the same error. It's okay. Oh.
Yep, there's the space. Yep. Good catch. I couldn't even see it.
There it is. Okay, so now if we go here and then I paste it and then I press enter and then nothing happens. And then
now you just got to refresh the page.
Refresh the page.
There you go.
So up until like, we've been working together. This is our 4th session. This has been the only time that I've been essentially rabbit hole, like stuck for many hours on one challenge. And I guess there's a lot to learn. First of all, like this is the first time I've used the software that generates cookies, but the actual challenge itself, it's kind of like with the code that they've given you, there's only 20 possible cookies that can be generated. And from then on, it becomes like a little bit of a brute force problem. And straightforward in a way.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. So the code was butter, right? So can you go back to the site? Is the site still open or did you close it?
No, it's still open.
So go back, just click back, don't click reset. I just want to see something. You're still in Burp Suite. That's probably why.
No. This is Chrome. Burp Suite is not.
Oh, okay.
It's not going back. It is.
Okay. Try and just take out the display. I'm trying to see if we can do it without resetting it. Nope. Okay. I was going to say, I wanted to see if you typed butter in, does it auto generate the correct cookie for you?
If I've typed in all 20, actually, that was the first thing that I tried.
Oh, okay. You've
so that will not give you the flag.
Okay. Gotcha.
That will not give you the flag.
My guess is it does the same thing. It resets the session every time. But yeah, I mean, realistically, this was a specific like this one you had to specifically, that's why they gave you the hint about Flask, because you had to specifically use Flask, right? And it's a Python specific module. So it's such a specific thing that they want you to do a little research, but the concept is there. This is very common. This is session hijacking is very common, which is where you're taking cookies and inserting them. So for instance, if you're logged into a site and I take your cookie, or if I can get access to your cookie and then put it into my website, or I mean, into my web browser, excuse me, depending on if I know what I'm doing or not, I can then pretend I'm you, right? So it's very common to manage cookies. And I think that's the more focus here, is that they're trying to get you to manage the cookies, know how to edit them, encode them, decode them. Because a lot of times these cookies are obviously encoded. So I think it's more of a challenge to get you familiar with the encoding, all that type of stuff. Because like I said, Flask is such a specific thing that even if you were in the real world and you ran into Flask, I mean, it took you, like you said, you got stuck on it and it took you 3 hours, right? If it takes a normal person 3 hours to, now granted, you're probably more tech savvy than the normal person, but even if it takes someone 3 hours to decode a cookie, that's pretty insecure, right? So it should be taking much, much, much longer than that. So I think it's a really good challenge for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to show people, like, this is me solving it 3 ways. This is a tool, Flask Session Cookie Manager, that's sort of similar to Unsign, but it just does everything for you. So I found that on GitHub. That was the first thing. That was actually a write-up from a write-up. So that was where I went first. And then I'm like, nah, I want to do this myself. So I've learned a little bit of Bash. Let me just show you this, nano test.sh. So like, I got all of the cookies in, and then I just said for value in the array, echo the value, and then Flask and sign so I signed all of them to have the very auth admin, right? So what I did then was bash test.sh. And so like I generated all of these. The reason why
paste them in there.
And then I went into the Hootsuite. Sorry, I keep saying Hootsuite. I went to Burp Suite and Intruder and put them, those guys as payloads. I even put the names of the cookies as payloads, because that when it didn't work, I'm like, these are going to be my 40 payloads. And then that just wouldn't work. And it was driving me mental. And I think what happens is, just like you said, every time you send one in, a brand new request, it's a new session with a brand new cookie. And so you've got about a 1 in 20 chance of getting it.
Yep. Now what you could do manually, I mean, you could easily take each one of these on one session and type them in, refresh the page, type them in, refresh the page, as long as you don't reset that connection.
Right.
You could do that, and this would still do the same thing.
So I mean, just intercept is on. If I open the browser, this is the browser.
You could probably do this on repeater as well, actually.
If I do that, and so that was the cookie, right? I mean, you could just basically action send to intruder, and now you go into intruder. I mean, it highlights it there for you. You go payload, simple list. It's the default thing, and you just start the attack. And it's like, I was positive this would work.
If they didn't, and I think that's the whole reason they put the random generator in there. Right. Is to make it more difficult, because otherwise you could everyone would have the same cookie, right? But you could probably put this in repeater and manually do it that way.
I did it
as well.
I did it via repeater. It works in repeater.
That maintains the same session and sends it off every time.
Weirdly, my little, the window that when you're running the intruder, I have it like minimized and it's hidden somewhere out of, literally out of sight. I'll show you 1 second. New share. It's somewhere. Am I sharing it? There it is.
All I see is
there it is.
There it is. There it is.
There it is.
I just see a little.
And they all end up always being the same. And there is I found that there is something else in the settings. Follow redirections in scope only always. And then I tried following redirections. Anyway, that's my a very, very long, arduous journey to not getting an answer, but at least you gave me a bit of an insight into, why I didn't get it.
Yeah, that would be my assumption. Obviously, I can't. I could test that if I did some sort of network capture or something like that to see if it's resetting the connection. But
all right. Well, let me just bring back our pages. Here's our web shell. I can close all of this Flask stuff. And where's my picoCTF? Yeah, here's picoCTF. And let's see what's next.
Yeah, the next one, your note says this was entertaining, which is good.
Good. All right. Oh, I think I know.
I like these.
Oh, yes. That was my favorite. Caas. Caas as a service, because I had to look up Caas. Like I installed Caas, I played around with it. It's just goofy. I loved it. And so somebody made Caas work in the browser. So clear Caas as a service. And so now you say basically Caas, Mars, whatever, and you just say anything. This is cool. And then the cow will.
Yep. So
it's the spaces, I think.
The spaces. Yep. And then I think you have to put the cow there.
Yeah.
I think you're missing that, but.
All right. Will this work? Hey, it does. Yep. It handles the spaces.
Yeah. So I actually did this somewhat similar to what you just did, except for so once I saw that, I looked at the code and I looked at it. And if I remember correctly, looking at the source code, it actually shows that it's taking it in as STD in or STD out. I can't remember what I saw in the code, but basically you could tell that it was reading the code on the backend server, which tells me right then that I can use command injection basically. So I can, or command execution. So I could, the next thing I would try is something like ls. I would just put ls to see, does it read it as a command or does it read it as string,
And ls, and it'll just say ls, but then if you just say like, so if you separate commands, so say this, and then now you do ls, and ls is a command. It actually,
and that's exactly what my next step would be, right?
that was that was a lot of like, that was very, very interesting, because like caas is something that works in the terminal, and if they're essentially running it on a web server, that's probably what they're doing. They're calling a command. So I had to look up exactly like executing Linux in the URL and stuff like that. And I arrived at like you're going to need to put these semicolons at the end of commands. So once that's there, I mean,
the semicolon acts pretty similar to if you've ever done SQL or anything like that. SQL uses semicolons as well to end commands, things like that. That one. So once you put the semicolon, it's gonna end. You can put the ls, and then you can put an
no. I'm pretty sure I know what's
symbol.
Up. It actually, this is where I got it stuck last time. It's FALG. Okay. It's a file.
Oh yeah, you spelled flag.
And I wrote it properly.
I noticed that too when they did that, because I thought,
there it is.
The first time I did that, I thought I saw that too, and I thought, did they spell that wrong or did they do that on purpose? But then I opened it and I was like, oh, they have to be messing with people.
All right.
Yeah.
That was good. So it's kind of crazy how much, I think most cookies or more cookies. I mean, that was like so much harder than this. And then the next one is picobrowser, which was, if you remember, we did picobrowser. This is 200 points. And we did a harder one that was worth less.
Yeah.
So basically,
I think Web Gauntlet was only worth like 100 or something. And that's SQL injection, which if you don't know anything about SQL, it's even harder than, in my opinion, than like Flask or something to learn. But it's just crazy how the point system works on this.
My new website, flag, and it says you're not picobrowser, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't know, like, here's a question. Is it possible? Let me solve it for the audience out there. And then maybe you can tell me like if it's possible to do it with a different tool, or, what I'm doing now in Burp Suite, like what are other ways around it? Since I'm a relative novice, this is the only tool that I know how to modify HTTP requests with, right?
I will tell you, Burp Suite's by far the most widely used tool. So most people will do kind of what you did, which is just go straight to it. They won't mess with it because there's no need to. They'll just use what they know works.
Yeah. So I'm just going to open that. And I mean, that's the request. Of course, you send to repeater because that's the one where you can modify it. And if I full screen user agent, that's what it talks about, the browser. And picobrowser, I don't know if that's exactly it, but if not, I can render. There you go. The thing I hate about the render is I can't copy the flag. And seriously. Search. Oh, there it is. All right. So there that goes. That was easy. Is there another way to essentially, in a browser modify an HTTP request?
There's different ways to so you can't do it necessarily in a browser unless you have like a plugin. So Mozilla has plugins and stuff that will allow you to do different things on browsers. There's some that will actually capture information from the server as well, which is nice, saves you some work. But the Burp Suite's the main one to use, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. Number one, Burp Suite is, so you can set up your own Burp Suite theoretically. It's just a proxy, right? So you set up your own proxy and intercept the packets. You have to have something that will intercept the packets, because that additional information is being put on at the presentation layer with the actual with the browser itself. So unless you have either a different type of browser that's not like Chrome, Mozilla, that type of thing that allows you to edit where it's coming from, they basically are signing it is what they're doing, right? So but I will tell you an interesting story because funny enough, a lot of people see things like this and they think like, oh, that's kind of easy and silly and that will never work. If you remember back in, I think it was 2016, that exact attack is actually how Donald Trump's Twitter got hacked.
Yeah. I listened again, like this is where all of my InfoSec knowledge comes from. I listened to a Darknet Diaries with the people who did it.
Yep. And that's the exact attack they used. They literally changed their browser to state that they were on his phone, which they just use the same type of phone, and then change the location, which is also in the packet and things. And when they sent the request, it thought, yep, we're good. So that's an example of where something silly and easy, it does work.
Yeah. I mean, it would be so tempting. Again, like this is sort of like the responsible disclosure, but like, I don't think I could resist the temptation to just
that one,
tweet a strong, like,
they acted like they, I listened to that one too. And they acted like they did it for, to disclose. And I know they did, but at the same time, they were like, we have to do this. We have to try it. Yeah. Like there was no, because they acted like they were real hesitant. I don't think they were real hesitant.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I was, but it's, again, for people out there, like responsible disclosure is, let's say you get into someone's account and you do that based on the fact that there's a leak that's just happened, right? And then you inform them and the company immediately. You don't browse, you don't look at any files, you've literally logged in and informed. That is seen as still not illegal. You might get a thank you note, depending on what the company's security team is like. But if they just tweeted one letter, if they clicked into messages, if they did anything more, now that sort of crosses a certain gray line.
And I will say a lot of people think like something like that, like you said, they think like, oh, well, if I just click on one thing or if I just look at the message or whatever, like they won't even realize it. But I can tell you 100%, I have software at my company that I can see every single thing you've accessed. So if you select messages on the server, I can see that you access that messages folder. So I can tell when you clicked on what and when and where. So don't think that if you get it, like you said, if you're going to disclose it and you think maybe I'll just look at something, they can see that. So you now are in illegal territory.
And there's, you really are. First of all, if that's something you want to do, know that you're walking a minefield. But you have to stop literally once the door is open. Stop. All right, picobrowser done. Client side again. Oh, this one was.
Are you skipping web gauntlet?
Oh, I was going to do web gauntlet as 11. Client side again.
Okay.
And
gotcha.
This was, you were going to do web gauntlet, and I was going to do client side again. All right.
I just have them different numbered. That's all.
All good. All right, client side again. I kind of feel bad again because client side again. There is a more complicated way to do this. Funnily enough, I never entered it. This is cool. So that'll be the first time, but I'm positive I figured it out. Like, I was inspecting. So in here, I don't know if I needed to go to the second page after inspecting, or I got it off to the first. This will be interesting. So in the sources, in the index, look, there was somewhere I found. Maybe it was here after I attempt to verify. No, I found a, I mean, this is where it checks the password, but there is also, yeah, substring picoCTF, not this. There it is. If we copy that, I mean, if I just open a TXT file, notepad, this seems to have all of the elements, because if you notice, A46, check pass, substring, 0xb. There were some matching numbers that I saw, but this seems to have everything. And that's kind of like, there is some encoding here that I do not understand that you might be able to explain. This is basically the function that checks slices of the flag. And these are the like, you can also sort of see, okay, it'll start with N. It'll have, this is from picoCTF. So it'll say not, that's like, they're not checking the whole thing, but it'll start with not. And if you think about what's in there, not this again, and then that's probably the number that's there. I didn't assemble it, but I did Google it, and it did say not this again. So I reckon I can easily assemble it.
This one is in my opinion, a simpler version of the same ones, the sum assembly required. This is the same thing sum assembly required is doing in theirs, except for they're doing it in a much more complex way. They're just looking for pieces in the code, but then they're encoding theirs. This one's not even encoded. This one's just out in the open, but you're just assembling it with instructions, basically.
So let's see if I, if I've managed to, 200 points. I mean,
I don't know about the 200, but
I feel bad about it. It's not like I understand. I actually understand, but it's clear to me, given that these are pieces of a standard flag. You've got the start of the bracket. You've got like picoCTF. That in here is a curled end of a bracket. Not this. picoCTF is there, but here you go. It ends with this. So yeah, not this again. Yeah, I think.
Yes, sometimes it's that easy though.
I'm sure that there is a way to do it without, like, by actually understanding this code. Do you know what these things are, by the way? The 0x, like.
I do not, only because I didn't look at this one because I was running out of time and I saw that you already did it.
Fair enough. But like, they're variable names. Like,
yeah, it's a variable name for sure. I mean, you can see them declare it right there, but
yeah,
I'm not sure if they're using that for a reason or just to try and confuse
it. I think that like they are purposefully obfuscating that. I mean, first of all, this is all written in one line.
That's what I think is the whole point of it, is just obfuscation. I don't think they're actually for a purpose besides obfuscation.
Yeah, and because
I'm sure if you made the variable name something, obvious, this code would be very easy to read.
Yeah, and I refuse to make my head hurt.
Yeah,
with arbitrary, like, as a teacher, like I marked down. So 5 points out of 60 are essentially how good your function names and variable names are and how much they make sense to me. So like, I don't mind punishing students for writing down pointless variable names. And I don't know, I don't want to punish myself.
Yeah.
Here,
Well, I'm the same way because like sometimes I'll just get a flag much easier and then I'll look it up and I'll be like, I don't need to go through all that if I can find it a lot easier than that.
Mm, mm. It's kind of like detective work. I mean, I'm sure other people develop shortcuts, but like right now, I go to inspect and I just search for the flag everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what I did on this. And that's what I noticed, that like the pieces of the flag are right there. And I'm like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no need to, like you said, rack your brain for no reason.
Okay, like you're taking over now because the web gauntlet.
So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here.
1 second, let me stop share.
So this one I actually had to go back and do again because the first time I did it, I kind of beat it without meaning to. So like there's one command so if you can beat the last round, which is round like 6, I think it is, you can beat them all with the same one. So that's kind of what I did. But I did it like I think I did like the 4th or 5th command, and then I was just beating them all. And I'm like, so then I'll show you what I did here. So let me share my screen. All right. All right. So you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so this is most cookies. We'll go to, it's called Web Gauntlet. All right. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Open this, and then let me open this. All right. So first thing I noticed is the filter, right? So the filter is telling us what we cannot use. So, and I tested this completely by myself by just doing, so like first thing I did is I typed like admin, because, okay, perfect. So they actually are giving us the SQL command in the back end. So then I said, okay, obviously what we're trying to do is we're trying to break out of this. So we're trying to say, we want to select from where username equals admin and the password equals admin, right? So we don't know the password. So we want it to stop right here. We want it to say the username is admin. And the reason they did this, back in the day, what people used to do, this is not really in use anymore, is people would put right here after the and, or after the admin, they would change that and to an or. And the reason for that is because then it's saying if the username's admin or the password is, and then it doesn't matter what the password is. That's not really in use that much anymore in this exact case. So what we had to do, and let me get my
by
notes.
the way, do you have a good website where people can learn some basic SQL commands?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna we can put it in the
description.
Happy description, but I've got a couple. Yeah. So there's one that's really good, and it's w3schools.com/SQL. And that's got a whole tutorial and everything else. But pretty much the easiest way to learn SQL, you can get cheat sheets and stuff, but is to just mess around with databases, meaning just like get a database that you set up where it's super simple. It's got like maybe, a couple of columns, couple of tables, and just start pulling data from it manually with the syntaxes. And you'll pick up on the syntax pretty easy because like you can see, this is pretty much how the syntax works. So you're going to select the wildcard. It just means select all. And then you're going to select it from the users table where the username equals admin. And the table clearly is holding admin or usernames and passwords, right? Yeah. So that's pretty much what most of the SQL syntaxes are going to look like. This is pretty common. And then the nice thing is they give it to you. So a lot of times you're going to do, when you're doing a SQL injection, you're not going to get this code written back to you. You know what I mean? So you're going to have to basically kind of know what the backend server is doing. So for instance, just knowing how this works and how SQL works, I could probably write this code out and then in my head go, okay, how am I going to break out? So first thing on round 1, we knew that we basically need to break out of this. So like I said, the first time I did this, I was a little bit too far ahead. So I'll show you, I just did admin. So now we're right here in the statement where username admin. And then I just did to go ahead and enter admin. And then I just commented it out. So that just means everything after this is a comment, right?
Right.
So then it doesn't matter what password you put. Boom. And it shows us here where it's at. Now, I will tell you that the first time I did this, I was actually a couple of steps ahead. And so then what I started doing is I started going to these filters and looking, and it kind of gives you a key to how they wanted you to do it. So you can see now they've blocked us from using and statements, like, equals, and the comment. So now we can't use the comment anymore.
Okay.
So now you can see this is what happens with the comments. So if you do the same thing, you'll notice it actually clears out the whole command. So
and you still
when I first,
too, yeah.
Yep. So when I first saw this, the first thing I thought to do is to try and bypass the filter, which is pretty easy. So all I would do here is I know that the comment, let's see which ones we have again. So equals, like, blah, blah, blah. So the easiest way to do this would simply be to end the statement instead of comment it out, right? So just like our earlier, just put a colon there, and that will just tell it. Here, I'll get it written, or get a regular one up so that we can see it. So now if we do this, you can see here now, right here. Whoops, I thought I typed it in. Now right here where it says admin, right after it, it's just going to put that colon, that semicolon, and that will end the statement. So instead of commenting, it's just going to end it. It's going to say, okay, we don't care about the password.
Nice.
And then
so now
I did
it doesn't
that.
matter what you enter. So you're in the next round.
And you can see right there, there's where it ends. And so this stuff doesn't matter. So then this actually worked for the third one too. And then you can see if we go back to the filter, they took away a couple more options for us.
Oh, we didn't need
but this works the same. Whoops. And you can see we're on 4. So the first 3 are pretty easy. This is where it kind of starts to, you have to have a little bit more knowledge of it. So now let's go ahead and refresh here and see what we've got. Okay, so it looks like the only thing they took out was admin. So now we can't type admin. So this is where it gets a little bit harder. And so you can see if we do the admin, if we just do the same thing we just did, and whoops. You notice it clears it out. So this is where I tried to bypass the filter completely. And this is an old trick. It doesn't really work that much anymore, but sometimes it still will, is you'll do something like a admin and then dmin. And the whole point of this is, so this admin here will get filtered out. And when it gets filtered out, it now puts this A and min together. So this is an old trick. It won't work here, but this is the first thing I tried to do. I'll just tell you, I tried to bypass the filter because I thought they're going to filter out that admin, but you can see their filtering system's actually decent and it comes back with nothing. So that means it didn't work. Right. So that kind of threw me for a little bit because I was like, I thought for sure I that's what they wanted. But then I kind of thought more about it, and really this is where it came in. So we can't use admin, right? So we can use whatever, Bob, Tom, whatever, doesn't matter. So I just put user is what I put. Yep. And then from user, we're going to obviously clear it. So here I did user. I'll go ahead and open this because this is what I was doing initially. I was just doing user, whatever. And I was copying these. And then I would just do this and I would kind of just work through it. Now, the big thing here with these is I would just get rid of these because I'm not using anything after that. So I would just work with this. So the first thing I did was user, and then we have to end it. And then from here, I remember I just did union. So union is just, it's kind of, you're running multiple commands together. So we're going to say union, meaning we want you to show me the results from this command, which is the users where username is user. and we're going to say we want something else. So the union, and then we're going to say select just like before. And we want to select the,
admin? No.
No, we can't type admin now. So now we want to select. Yeah. So that's the whole trick here, right? So we want to select same thing from users, just like we had before. So basically we're doing the exact same command, but then instead of the admin, there's a couple ways to do this. I did it this way because it was easy. So we're going to do limit. So limit 1, what this does, this is going to limit us to just showing the first result. So what we're looking for here is the exact same thing from users.
But because it starts with A, it's very possible that the first.
Well, not because it starts with A. The first user created is the admin, typically, unless they change it. So it's not very common they change it. So admin is almost always user ID 1. So when that happens, we can now say the first, and it may be, that's the reason I didn't use ID as a delimiter, because what can happen is maybe it doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe it starts at 100 or whatever, but the first result should be an admin. And so that's basically what we're looking at here. Now you can see here, if I type this in, because this one threw me for a loop for a second because I didn't know why it wasn't working. But if we go ahead and you can see if it's not loading anything there. Okay, so we see that it filtered out. So I thought, okay, what the heck's going on? Well, then I did a little bit more research on SQL and some SQL injections and things, and figured out that we need to get rid of these spaces, basically. So this is where you just have to do this. So this is fairly common you just do that and it gets rid of spaces. There's other techniques that not in SQL, but in other languages where you have to get rid of spaces and things, because it, just like coding, it can mess with stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead. These are just counting as spaces, basically. So where all the spaces are, we're putting these. And all it's doing is literally just counting as a space. So it's the same thing as putting a space there. It just reads it as a space instead of us having to specifically put space. What did I do there? I put a tag in there somewhere. For some reason. You
just need to
okay.
Stretch the window.
Yeah, it just did it for me. It did a continuation. I thought I actually typed that out. All right. And then limit 1. All right. And then, so as long as you keep it right there. And so now it's the exact same command, just with spaces. What did I mess up? Union. Oh, let me look at the code here. So
the most likely is after select to from. That seems.
Well, there's an asterisk select from users. Let's see. So union select from.
The first / before the asterisk there. I'm not sure that's necessary. The / before the asterisk. Like, I don't know if it'll read, how it'll read 3 dots, but it seems to me that / space, sorry, /* is space, right?
Yeah. Which one are you talking about? I might have.
Right there. You're literally there. It's /*.
I'm listening to you. I hear.
Annotate.
So right here.
Yeah.
And then hold on 1 sec. I'm gonna.
It would be 3 stars in a row in this area. That's anyway.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Because the 2 will put a space, but you need the second /. I think that's where I messed up. I think I needed that /. So the /*/ is what puts the space, I believe. So that's why.
Okay. Then we're missing a bunch more.
That didn't work. What did I type?
If it's 4 characters, then you're missing a bunch more. Union.
Let's see.
Select from users. See the limit? See the limit?
Oh, yep. Good
That's
call.
Where you're missing one.
Yep. Users from. Yep. Okay. So this is why I do it in a notepad instead of in here, because it's very easy to miss in here. All right. And there we go. So perfect. So now we're through that one. And you can see there, they act as basically the exact same command we did. We just left out the admin. and limit 1, which is just telling us the first entry in that. So now if we redo this, you see they took out the union. So the reason I keep going back to the filter, because theoretically you could do this without looking at it, is because like, so challenge 4, I actually did the 5th command, and then I was like, oh, it does 4 and 5. So I thought I must have missed something. So I went back and looked at the filter on 4 and saw that union's what they blocked. So they probably wanted us to use union. So that's kind of why I purposely am going back and looking at these, because you could really do this last command on all of them and it would get through all of them. Right. But they want you to see all the different SQL injections. So, all right. So 5 is pretty easy. So this is what I did for 4 as well. But so all you're doing is AD, and I'll actually do this. I'll pull it up here for you. So we'll get rid of all of this. So we can't use admin again, but we can use AD. This is similar to the one we did before. But what we're going to do is we're going to do these 2 pipes. So in SQL, if you do a pipe, what it does is it concatenates or puts together these 2 things. Add and min. So it's that easy. So this is why I figured this one out easier than I did the union one, because this is super simple. And it will just put them together for you, which is similar to what we tried to do earlier. It's just going to bypass the filter. But the problem is, if you put this in, you can get through all of them with that command. So if you figured that out first, you're just going to go straight through. You're not even going to think anything of it. So now it says checkout filter. So now when you go to filter, you can see it gives you, I'm not really sure why they show you the code instead of just say like, hey, here you go. But
they show you the code.
Yeah. So here is the actual thing. And then one interesting thing, if you guys are trying to redo this, you have to actually close out completely or delete your session, because even if you keep doing this, whoops, I'd save the code there. But even if you keep going in here and doing the same thing, it just keeps going up in rounds, but nothing happens. So it'll just keep telling you to check filter. So then you go here, put the code in, and boom.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. So you have to close out all your browser and clear the session, or else this will just keep going, counting up, because I had to go back and redo it to try and figure things out. But
thanks for the heads up. I'm going to do it myself at some point. So we're going to wrap it up here. And just a note for everybody, next week, the video collaboration is going to be a little bit more about general topics and careers. We're going to specifically talk about how CTFs are good for your career and general learning development. I'll get some advice from Stuffy myself as well in terms of my next steps. Stuffy's got Security Plus tutorials that are on his Patreon, and I'm going to be doing Security Plus at some point this year. I haven't decided if it's September or sooner, but I plan to get it done by the end of September anyway.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure when they actually switch, because they're at 601 now. I'm not sure when they'll go. It'll be a little bit, but they'll eventually go to 701.
Okay. I probably should get it done while there's all these learning materials for 601, right?
Yeah. Usually they come out with their own book, of course, right away that has all the material in it.
It's a business.
Yeah, exactly.
But look, I haven't looked that much into it, but there you go. You're going to get some questions from me on that. And the general gist of it is going to be all about, hey, like particularly a lot of the people that watch the videos, but particularly the ones that are going to watch these, that are going to be in that coding competition. A lot of them are thinking about cybersecurity as a career. And yeah, I just want to ask the questions that they'll have. Of course. Some questions that I'll have. And after that, guys, the videos are going to ramp up in excitement because Stuffy's going to hack me we're going to do at least 2 methods. The first of which is going to be me hosting a web server, and it's going to be brute forcing the SSH from what I remember you telling me. Super. That's all we got time for. Take care and see you in the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.